Hello and welcome back to Dukascopy TV. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development has today released its Global Economic Outlook, and we're going to take a quick look at the euro area with the OECD's Deputy Chief Economist, Jorgen Elmeskov. Jorgen, thanks for joining me today. Before we focus in more detail on the Eurozone outlook in the report, what's your overall analysis?
What we foresee is a pretty slow recovery for the euro area in general. And within the euro area, there's a lot of heterogeneity. So the program countries and some of the other, should we say, exposed countries, they are clearly contracting, whereas other countries, Germany in the lead, they can be expected to show much better growth rates. Now, when it comes to the countries sometimes referred to as the periphery countries of the euro area, we assume that the fiscal measures that these countries have announced, and in the case of program countries, agreed with the Troika, that these measures will actually be implemented. But in a number of cases, we see activity developments as a bit weaker than what is embedded in the plans that they have put forward with the Troika, meaning that tax revenues may be a bit weaker, spending on unemployment benefits may be a bit higher than assumed in the programs. And we say that's all right, and our projection is made on the assumption that they do not engage in additional tightening measures to offset that.
Now, in the report, it says the rapid removal of remaining barriers to competition would enhance competitiveness and growth. This is in regards to Greece. What do you mean by this exactly?
Basically, what we're saying is that there's a lot of regulatory barriers in Greece that make it hard to establish new enterprises, that imply a lot of red tape in the economy, and that therefore lead to barriers to competition in general in the economy. And if one could reform all these regulations and thereby boost competition, clearly prices in a number of sectors, especially in the service area, would tend to decline, which would make the Greek economy in general more competitive and would allow it to gain market shares more quickly than currently. I mean, they are having low inflation and wages are declining, and that is leading to certainly a stabilization of market shares. But if one could speed up that process, then the economy could turn around faster.
Now, just focusing on Spain, it says in the report Spain is still in recession and unemployment's expecting to continue to rise to 28% before we see some kind of stability. But that is still way too high and surely is unsustainable. Can you tell me what your biggest concern for Spain's economic outlook is?
Well, certainly you point to one very important concern, which is unemployment, which is clearly a social problem of almost unimaginable magnitude, but it is also a risk in the sense that it can pose questions about the political acceptability of the adjustment that the economy is now going through. It is the case that Spain has got further to go in terms of its fiscal adjustment. It certainly has got further to go in terms of the adjustment of its level of competitiveness in order to gain more market share, even though Spain is actually beginning in a serious manner to gain market shares. But there's just more progress that's needed in these areas.
I just want to touch on Portugal. The report says the economy is projected to contract throughout this year, and the unemployment rate to reach historical highs of more than 18%. The report says Portugal is in an identical situation to Spain in almost every way. Your thoughts?
In the case of Portugal, it's the same as for Spain. We see more fiscal consolidation this year than next year. So next year is not going to be as tough as this year. That's also one of the reasons why we've got negative growth for this year and very mild positive growth for next year. Clearly, it would help in all these countries if credit conditions were easier than they are, and it certainly is to be hoped that a way can be found to ease credit conditions in all of the periphery countries.
Finally, we can't cover all of Europe, obviously, today, but one region I'd like to look at is in the East. Do you believe we're starting to see a shift in Europe from West to East? We know the North is more economically stable than the South, but how is Eastern Europe faring in all this?
I think the answer is a bit heterogeneously, with some countries having problems and going through a patch of very slow growth or even recessions, with other countries seeming to skirt recessions, though they've still experienced slowdowns. So there's a fair degree of divergence between these countries. I mean, a country like Poland has clearly experienced a slowdown, a pronounced slowdown, but does not seem to be at risk of recession, and we see the economy recovering, basically because the Poles never got into the kind of big problems that some of the others did. So it's a mixed picture. I think one needs to think about this in a somewhat longer time frame. And if one does that, it's clear that Eastern Europe is still in a catching up phase. And that means that going forward, we would still expect relatively high growth rates. And we would certainly expect relatively high growth rates on a per capita basis.
Okay, there's plenty more to talk about on this, but we have to cut it short, I'm afraid. Thanks for joining me today. Do keep an eye on our regular updates and interviews online at Dukascopy TV. But for now, goodbye.